time we actually get to this episode. We did, of course, didn't get to go yesterday due to technical issues. Now we're going to be talking about episode 1 and 2 of this brand new Disney Plus series. So yeah, I'm excited to get into it, talk everything Loki, everything Marvel, and what the future holds for this TV series.
Yep, and while just entertain them just for a second while I put it on Facebook. If you're not a part of our Facebook group, if you're not a part of our Facebook group, there's a link in the description. You can get notified when we're going live every Wednesday until the conclusion of Loki.
Yeah. So if you're not following us already on all of our social media, everything's going to be linked below, as well as our Anchor podcast link. You could also find us on Google Podcasts, Spotify. I think we're back on Apple finally.
Who
Again,
knows?
all of our social media is down below. Everything to find us is down below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification icon so you know when we go live and you can interact with us. If you're listening right now, hit us up in the chat, say hello. And yeah, while Captions is over there just looking gorgeous as usual. Oh man. Well yeah, the first two episodes did actually get released. Episode 1 last week and then episode 2 yesterday. So a lot is already happening with the series, and a lot of Easter eggs, a lot of references are being known. And yeah, again, just really excited to be doing this. Again, it's a new format. Uh, so yeah, just talking.
Jesus Christ.
I'm
All
so
right.
awkward live.
Yeah, you are. So let's just jump straight into it. Episode 62 of the Coffee Time podcast. We're going to cover episode 1 of Loki and episode 2 of Loki. And what's up?
I just said, mm-hmm.
Okay, and we're going to return on a base schedule next week, Wednesday, after the episode airs. So this is the last time before you can get out of here or you can come. Spoiler alert, because I don't want anyone talking shit in the comment sections like, oh my god, they spoiled it for us and everything like that. No, we didn't. It's been out for I don't know how long. So, Justin, I'll just begin. What did you think about the first episode? How about that?
So it's kind of weird because, of course, we both watched WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier. So this is like my fear was, oh, it's just gonna be kind of like an in between, but it's its own different entity. And the first episode, I was really excited to see where this series is going, especially with the ending, which we'll get into later, how it ended. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it. The tone of Loki, though, it's kind of different because these events happen like not even a couple minutes after the Battle of New York, the first Avengers movie.
Mm-hmm.
So, whenever you first saw that movie, who Loki was, he was this villain, he was this murderer, this bad guy, like this very narcissistic bad guy. And I kind of didn't see that in episode 1. He was more along the lines of like what Loki did turn into at the end, like this kind of like lovable anti-hero, um, kind of like joking and everything like that. So it was kind of weird, like how they went about it instead of going back to how the character originally was when we first meet him in Thor and then in Avengers. So that was kind of like a little different for me. I don't know if you had that same reaction in regards to Loki.
Well, I find it funny that the show is named Loki, but I didn't pay attention to him at all. And it's kind of hard to say that because he's just so in your face, braggadocious. He's like, I'm Loki, I'm the god of Asgard,
Mhm.
god of mischief, and whatever. But I was more so focused on what they were trying to do. Like, where does this take place in the timeline? So clearly, this takes place before Thor Ragnarok, correct?
Mhm.
Because he didn't
Yeah.
know that Ragnarok happened, and he didn't know that he led the Dark Elves to kill his mom, and that's kind of what shows what Loki is really trying to be. He's fighting off his good side, and he wants to, you know, portray that he's evil and hurt people
Mhm.
and everything like that. So, sorry, I was getting a notification here. So I was like really focused on like, okay, the timeline is basically this happens right after or in the middle of the first Avenger movie when Hulk is all pissed off and everything about
Yeah.
Loki, no stairs, and everything. And it's before Thor's Ragnarok. So the MCU timeline, which I'm trying to read, is like, okay, I can see where they're trying to fit this in, but how are they really gonna do this? Because like the multiverse, time travel, time fringent, time or like arc or storyline is just overwritten, outplayed, and it's
Yeah.
just not refreshing. It's like, okay, it's gonna be the butterfly effect where he steps on a cracker and it causes an earthquake in like 2026 or some shit like that. But they took a whole new approach about it with the three lizards and the what's the association called that manages all the timelines?
Time Variance Association.
Say it again.
Authority. Time Variant Authority.
Time variant, yeah, the TVA.
TVA. Yeah.
TVA. Yeah, so the creation of the TVA is unique, and it's so funny how everyone that was created in the TVA are they human? Because they resemble human, but
You know, I'm not
like,
entirely sure because not to jump ahead, but in episode 2, like Loki does kind of question that and where they come from
yeah,
because he's like, how do you know this is real even though no one's seen them that I know of. I know that the agent that works with Loki has never met them, but
yeah,
the other person says that they have or that they've spoken with them. So
yeah,
we don't know those answers yet. I think that's going to be revealed more down the line in future episodes. But yeah, for now, like we're just kind of like left out of the loop of like, okay, we're still gathering information. Like, are these people humans that just were time variants at one time and now working for the TVA, or were they born into this world?
yeah, and that's what I'm trying to figure out with the entire episode. And then Loki is he does his Loki trickster stuff, kind of escapes and everything like that. Then he ends up back in the room and he sees his file, his time file, and like to the end of his supposedly written story, what he's supposed to. And he sees Thanos choking him out, breaking his neck, and all the horrible
Mhm.
things that he did to his mom and to Asgard. So
Yeah.
it's like it feels like Loki has stepped into a world, or he's got an opportunity because he's Loki to be like the god of mischief to his own timeline, where he's like, "Oh yeah, that story's written. I don't like it. Maybe if I help these guys, I can unwritten what has already been wrote, and the strings of destiny, and change the narrative of what I'm actually meant to be, which is
Yeah.
someone that's just hurting and evil and mischievous and all that. And the agent dude, I don't know. There's something about that. What's the actor's name? Owen Wilson, right?
Yeah.
Something
Yeah. He's
about
playing Agent Mobius.
Mobius. Something about Mobius is just little iffy, little iffy. Like he's sticking his neck out a little too far for Loki, just to do it. And I feel like an alternate Mobius on another timeline helped this now. If and this is the end of the episode, Loki finds out the variant that they're hunting or they've acquired Loki in this timeline that we're watching to help them is actually another Loki. And I
Hmm.
feel like another Mobius tried to do something with this Loki and turned that Loki bad. You know?
Yeah. I
That's what I was
mean,
getting
that's
at.
definitely. What was that?
That's what I was getting from the first episode.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like, it was weird because, we didn't know why and I had the same thought too. I was like maybe they tried it with this other Loki, and then like too much information was reached, so he's trying to redeem himself and be like, look, like this is a different type of variant. I have faith in this one. And that's why in the first episode he's really trying to understand him and be like, like why do you do what you do?
Mm-hmm.
And he does have like a moment of like kind of clarity where he says, like I never liked hurting people. It's just something that I felt was a necessary evil because it was part of his illusion to be the villain. And Agent Mobius is like showing him like like you think you're this ruler, this person that's destined for greatness, but all your role is to bring out the best in other people. He killed Agent Coulson, so the Avengers avenged him.
Yeah.
He did the thing with the elves and Thor rose to power and like all this other stuff. So he's only a beacon to help those around them be greater. He's that's his whole destiny is for that.
Yeah, and just to lose a lot.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. To lose and run away.
So, just to recap the first episode, we find out who the what is it,
Time variant authority.
TVA is their purpose. We understand that there's three hierarchies that manages the entire flow of time. We get some
Hmm.
history about their creation and their purpose, and then we also realize, which is shocking, that Infinity Stones are just paperweights. Like they're
Yeah,
just
that
paperweights.
was a huge thing to where like he's looking for the Tesseract and he finds a whole box of Infinity Stones. So he's not the only variant to bring an Infinity Stone into the TVA
Yeah,
where they're essentially just useless paperweights. And he realizes like, the TVA is the greatest power
the
because
greatest
they
power,
hold the keys to the entire timeline. So this is a major thing, of course.
which is just wild. Which is just wild.
Yeah.
So let's go into episode 2. You lead here.
Yeah, so with episode 2, oh, hang on, someone's at the door. I am so sorry. Go ahead and lead this.
It's okay. Do your thing. So
All right.
episode 2 of Loki starts out with him basically accepting his role into the agency to find this Loki, and he's kind of playing. He's doing this mischievous ways of being like, you know what, I'm gonna help you guys, but he also shows them what Loki he's helping him without helping him, where he's stalling because he admires this Loki because he knows deep down that this Loki is the superior Loki that he wants to be and everything like that. So he's trying to find, look, for so we don't get confused here. I'm going to call original Loki Loki, and then variant Loki, which is the bad Loki, quote unquote. I'm just gonna call that bad Loki because we don't know Tom. His name is the actor's Tom Hiddleston.
Yes.
We don't know if Tom Hiddleston is actually good or bad. We kind of find that out in like the whole MCU timeline. Is he good or is he bad? And then Thanos breaks his neck. So Loki and then bad Loki. So Loki admires bad Loki's work because I think Loki still wants to achieve that the king and ruler of everything, but his timeline is not meant to be that way. And I think he has a hunch that this bad Loki is on their way to ascending his own goals. So he's admiring the crime scene that they put out, and he's stalling for this Loki. For the Loki who cannot get caught and everything like that, and he can study more so they can have a face to face. And I want to get your input first before we hit the big reveal and everything. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. So, the scene you're talking about whenever they first enter into this arena, yeah, he's looking at the crime scene, but I don't think he sees it as a superior thing. I think he was just like, he assumes like, okay, this Loki wants to communicate with me or like knows I'm gonna figure this out, so let me stall this one and let himself like, get away with doing whatever evil that is happening. Or he just really doesn't know like anything at all and is just trying to buy his time and say like, hey, if you get me in with the timekeepers, then I'll give you all the information. He's trying to
Right.
cover his ass, which is
Always.
perfect Loki move is cover his ass and say what he needs to say to gain the upper hand. But we do see like how he again, this doesn't go with the Loki from Avengers, the first movie, because like he's like complying with everything, learning the rules of the TVA, actually helping them, with the case. Like he's actually helping solve it, and he does learn about, the events that do unfold. Of course, he learns about Ragnarok. He learns about, the destruction and all that stuff, and that I think is kind of giving him like that thing of the not able to control what's happening. So like he's so desperate for control that he's willing to like do whatever it takes in order to get on the timekeeper's good side so they can change his outcome. So they can, even if it means like not ruling or anything like that, I think that's kind of out of his head, honestly, like to be a
Hmm.
ruler because he realizes like after that, then what? Like what do I gain from ruling everything? Like what next.
That's what he
And
learns. That's what he like. I think that's what he comes to realization with when after the talk with Mobius in the
mhm,
first one, and he's back in the room. He looks at his entire timeline and sees the unfortunate ending, the grim ending of Thanos breaking his neck. But that's
yeah.
interesting that you say that you think that he wants to gain the timekeeper's favor and not actually control the time, because let's just talk about it. In the middle of the episode, well, Loki actually figures out something that's very important while reading the Loki file case. He looks at, like, he's like, where is this guy hiding? Where is this bad Loki hiding? How can we not detect him? How is he this brilliant? And he realizes if a timeline ends with a massive destruction, like Ragnarok or Pompeii or a tsunami that just destroys everything, you could go to that timeline and there's virtually no butterfly effect. There's no dangerous variant that you or activity that you can do to make different timelines, because everything that you interact with is going to die. So it
Mhm.
has an ending. So there's no split timelines. So the time variant, what is the association
Authority.
authority, the TVA. I'm gonna get used to that. I want to say the TBA for some reason, but the TVA has a loophole or a major flaw in their detective system where, like, if you go to a place that is meant to be destroyed, I can do anything that I want. I could go there, steal resources, and it won't actually affect the timeline because the timeline has a grand ending.
Mhm.
So he realized that the bad Loki has to be hiding in timelines of apocalypse, because they can go, they can do anything, they can take any resources that they want, they can stay as long as they want. But when the apocalypse comes, they just dip and leave again. So he realized this is what's going on. They use this information and they find the Loki. They find the bad Loki and they come face to face. And I'll let you pick up from here.
Yeah, so come face to face, and it's such a reveal because, the entire time we're just seeing this cloaked figure, and we're thinking, okay, that's just Loki and whatever. But earlier in the episode, they talk about how the variants interact and like how they could come into different appearances, different characteristics, all these other things. So when the reveal finally happens where this hooded person removes their cloak, we see that it's actually a female version of Loki. And this just blows all of our minds because in my head I thought, okay, it's just going to be Tom Hiddleston playing like a future version of Loki. Like he was at the TVA beforehand, they did something, he turned even worse, and then they bring in this further Loki, like a time remnant. But no, we're seeing a completely different version of Loki.
A completely
And
different gender. It's female.
yeah,
It's a
and
female Loki, which is crazy.
yeah, and it's just such a crazy thing because now he's kind of back to square one because everything he was saying is how he would act.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're seeing, because he even says during their little fight that they have that he would never treat Loki this way or himself this way. So, and we're seeing like how this Loki isn't like, buying his tricks like, if you help me, I'll help you, the whole like self-reassurance and all that stuff. They're above that. They're just like, I'm the superior of you. If anyone's imitating anyone, you're imitating
Being me.
me. So, yeah, huge reveal. And then, of course, at the end, whenever they finally do meet, the master plan that this Loki has done comes into fruition where in the earlier episode and then this episode they've been stealing these reset charges that are supposed to reset time, and this Loki has been killing these TVA agents, stealing their resets, and then finally whenever they come face to face the plan comes to fold where they bad Loki attacks the timeline itself.
Yes.
And yeah, it's just like holy
And it's
shit.
not just one. It's one singular attack that makes different variants and variations of timelines at once. So he's exhausted the TVA's resources and basically cause like a mass bombing of the timeline. So you see the
Mhm.
timeline, which is one single line, have multiple branches coming out at 2 units to 3 units. And we find out that I think it's 5 units, and that's where it breaks the barrier and can become a catastrophic event that
Yeah.
creates more timelines. And she, as we know now, creates multiple, like 20 to 30 different timelines in one singular move. So the TVA's exhausted their resources and they can't show up at each place where she sent them to reset the timeline anymore. So this is where the episode kind of concludes in episode 2, because like you can see that Loki is very intrigued and he's like, what is going on? Like, I thought I knew myself, but do I really know myself? And
Mhm.
why are you a female? And he has a ton of questions. And he eventually leaves the TVA and Mobius and goes into a time portal with the bad Loki.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's kind of like this thing because you're wondering like, is he gonna go back to being bad or is he actually trying to do some good? Like, because we see that a little bit in the first two episodes. Like, you feel like he's trying to actually do something, not really for selfish gain. Of course, he still wants to change his fate and everything like that. But he's giving them all these resources. He's actually bonding with this agent, talking about their lives, things like
Mm-hmm.
that, and what they believe in. So whenever he goes through that portal, like the agents like just gives him this look like, don't do this, like we've come so far, don't do this, and then for him to do that, it's just like a huge betrayal.
Yeah, but it's
And
also like you saw that like weird like pondering that Loki had before he stepped in. He was like,
yeah,
like he was actually
and
like trying to come. He was deducing something. Like he's like, what happens if I stay here, and what happens if I go? And like,
yeah,
so we don't know if it's a good motive or a bad motive. We just know that
yeah,
there's motive there.
because when it comes to Loki, like he says himself, he's always like 10 steps ahead. Uh, so I wonder if like he's taking it into consideration, like, okay, it's better for me to go over there, learn everything I can, and either help or, disrupt their plan and save the multiverse essentially. And I
Yeah.
wonder because, with all the Marvel movies, we have different timelines. We have
Mm-hmm.
like the X-Men timelines, we have all these different branches overlap. So I wonder if this series is going to talk about those and is going to talk about the multiverse like, with mutants, the Fox, multiverse versus Marvel and all these other offsets. I wonder if it's going to talk about it at all or not.
Well, it's
Like
kind of
that's my question.
like the whole theme of this is the timeline and how they merged multiverse into one singular timeline, basically finding peace within all this chaos. So we
Yeah.
can see a lot of different things. Like this, the writing here is kind of to infinity, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Like because the timelines are infinity, so anything is possible in this world in this Loki show. But what happens in episode 3? Let's get into that. What happens in episode 3?
So we're definitely going to see the outcome, the aftermath of what happened. That we're going to see the TVA coming together, coming up with a plan, and we're going to see Loki getting some answers. And I don't think they're going to fight. I think there'll be a little bit of fighting, but then there's going to be more explanation and how it all happened. Like I think we're going to see a backstory on this bad Loki and
Yeah.
what happened to that one. I think that's what's going to happen. And again, it's just going to be a lot of like, what do we do now and how do we fix this?
So this is what I think. I think we're gonna get a backstory of this bad Loki. What's what's her origin story? I think she's going to tell Loki, good Loki, that he's been manipulated by Mobius in the TVA, and that his actual timeline is supposed to overthrow the TVA, and he gains massive control of everything, like what he inspires to be. And they wrote in that he was killed by Thanos as a deterrent for that. And then she found out, and she's caused all this chaos. And then she's gonna turn kind of a good Loki into evil Loki for a little bit, and then there's gonna be a standoff between Loki and Mobius, and and then it's gonna be some manipulation tactics because Mobius is really good at you know, manipulating or just steering the narrative in a way with Loki. Like I think
Yeah, I kind of noticed that
like I
too,
feel
for
like he
sure.
spoke to a fair amount of Lokis. Like he seems very well versed in how Loki acts, his mannerism, how he talks. Like he's like the Loki expert, you know?
Yeah, because he said at the scene where they're sitting together, like, I've studied your entire life. Like, he even said, you've literally stabbed
50
people in the
people
back
in the back.
more than 50 times.
Like,
So, yeah, so he knows like how Loki acts. He knows like how he stalls for time, how he manipulates, how he does
hmm
all this stuff. So it wouldn't be a stretch for him to steer him in the way they want to steer him. And I like your theory about how they wrote in Thanos killing him because again, they control all the time, so they say what happened. So if he really was supposed to do all this stuff, it would make sense the timekeepers are like, hey, in order to stop this, we're going to have this Titan kill Loki.
yeah, for sure, because he was actually questioning what's the end. If the timekeepers know the end, what's the end? Do you
Hmm.
guys know the end? I think the end was Loki coming to power over the entire time sequence or the multiverse and everything like that. And the timekeeper's like, yeah, let's not do that. Thanos, go break someone's neck. I think that's what happened. And yeah, I'm very curious to see it, to learn about this new Loki. I'm extremely curious about Mobius. Like he has my eye for most of the show. Honestly, I know his name Loki, but I'm like, what is Mobius all about? Because he
Yeah.
seems like he's so different than everyone else in the TVA. And yeah, just to end this episode, why did you think they highlighted Mobius not putting his coaster, his cup on a coaster? Because there was two rings,
Hmm.
right? And I was like, and there was in two different spots. Like these rings were overlapping each other, and she's like, "Dude, put it on your coaster or whatever." And he's like, "Oh, whatever. They were there before me." Like those, I'm like, it was just weird that because they put an actual single shot, micro shot, then they wanted to show you the rings and where he was placing the third cup because or the previous two cups were in different. I don't know. I looked at it, I was like,
Yeah,
what is
because
Marvel trying to do here?
every time filmmakers do stuff like that, it's on purpose. Like,
Yeah.
how posters are in the background, they mean something. So it could mean that three different timelines are overlapping each other, so it's probably foreshadowing
So
that.
this is why
But
I'm glad why I proposed this thought, and I'm glad you came to that conclusion. I think that conversation that they had about the Loki and should they terminate him right there, and then she's giving him the approval, is has happened twice already, and this is the third time that they're trying to fix this again. That's what I'm thinking.
yeah, because the words like "this is your final chance," I don't think it was pertaining to Loki
Exactly.
specifically, but I think in general, like, cause she's always saying like, "This is gonna fall on you, this and that. You can't trust them." I'm like, why are they having this much distrust? Like, what is it about Loki that they're just like, "Don't do this"? And I think you're right. This has happened before, and they're like, this all relies on Loki right now. Like, this is the final attempt. If not, then everything's screwed, and only Loki can stop Loki.
Yeah, just crazy. But hey, next time on Wednesday, what is it? We're gonna do 17:30 Pacific Central Time. So if you're living like in the Central Time, I would know that's Pacific daylight time. I'm sorry, Central daylight time. It'll be 19:30 or 7:30 for you, and then if you're on the East Coast, it'll be 9:30 on Wednesdays. Your camera went off, buddy.
You suck at time zones
Dude,
so much.
I hate it.
Just hit the bell notification icon and it'll let you know when we're going live.
Yeah, or follow us on our Facebook group, and we'll post every time we go on live. But until next time, I'm Captions.
And I'm Justin,
We out.
and this is Coffee Time. Out.